Have you ever wondered what really goes on in a woman's mind when she chooses to cheat? Forget everything you think you know about the subject. This isn't just an impulsive act or a simple lack of character. It's something much deeper, rooted in desires, frustrations, and needs that aren't always obvious. Imagine the internal dilemma of someone who, at the same time, loves and feels incomplete. Could it be that the betrayal isn't just about the other person, but about herself? In this journey, we'll explore the most hidden details, the ones that few people dare to discuss. Why would a woman, often seen as the emotional pillar of a relationship, choose to break the rules? Is it the partner's fault, the environment's, or something even more intriguing, hidden within herself? Get ready to uncover answers that might completely change your view of the female mind and the secrets she holds. Now, it's time to dive into the truth. But beware. You might never look at a relationship the same way again. The female mind is a complex universe, full of nuances that sometimes escape even the most attentive. When it comes to betrayal, the storyline is not simple. It involves unmet desires, frustrated expectations, and the search for something that maybe even she doesn't know what it is. Imagine a woman who lives in a stable relationship, but little by little, she feels the initial spark fading. It's not just about a lack of love, but about the absence of emotional connection and mutual admiration. She begins to seek, even if unconsciously, what she has lost, often in unexpected places. If we think about it, the desire for novelty is embedded in human nature. In the female mind, this desire is loaded with meaning, emotion, and even symbolism. A look that lasts a second longer, a conversation that touches the soul, or an out-of-place compliment can trigger intense reflections. It's as if the idea of betrayal first emerges as curiosity, then transforms into a choice, laden with internal justifications. This doesn't mean that every woman will act this way, but those who feel ignored or underestimated might identify with this pattern. Some women cheat not for the act itself, but for what it represents. An example would be a woman who has never been heard at home but finds attention from a coworker. For her, the betrayal is almost a cry for freedom, an act of rebellion against something that suffocates her. But here's where the paradox enters. The act that seems liberating carries with it a weight of guilt and confusion, as her heart is often still connected to the original partner. This internal battle shows how the mind can become a battlefield between emotion and reason. Understanding this movement requires looking beyond the surface. It's not just about infidelity, but rather a search for something deeper, for an identity that might have been lost. Think about how common it is for women who cheat to say, "I felt alive again." This feeling isn't about the other man, but about what he symbolizes for her. A reminder of who she was or who she wishes to be. This is where psychology digs deep to explain these behaviors. And what if she didn't want to cheat, but felt there was no alternative? Many women experience this dilemma, carrying a weight that no one sees. Between guilt and the desire to try something new, they create a narrative to justify their actions. And you can imagine how this opens the door to a universe of questions, right? Society plays a crucial role in shaping the behaviors that lead to betrayal, influencing both expectations and silent permissions. From an early age, women are surrounded by contradictory narratives. While they are expected to be faithful and committed, they are also constantly bombarded with ideas of independence and emotional freedom. This dichotomy creates an invisible pressure that can influence future choices. For example, a woman who grew up seeing her mother ignored by her partner might, unconsciously, reject emotional submission, seeking validation in external relationships. The social environment also reinforces models that aren't always healthy. Think about the movies or soap operas that romanticize infidelity as something exciting or even heroic. These stories, although fictional, have a powerful impact, normalizing behaviors that, in the real world, are extremely complex. At the same time, social circles can be another factor. A woman who feels validated in conversations where infidelity is trivialized may begin to see this possibility as something more accessible, especially if her own relationship is already worn out. And it's not just the media or friends. Social media culture amplifies possibilities, bringing constant opportunities with a simple swipe of a screen. Apps, private messages, and constant connectivity make it easier for anyone to venture into forbidden territory. The modern woman lives under the surveillance of rigid social standards, but also has access to a universe of interactions that didn't exist before. It's in this environment that dilemmas arise. Be faithful to traditional values, or allow herself to experience a different reality. Another interesting point is how betrayal is perceived culturally. In some societies, it's seen as a moral failure. In others, it's almost a symbol of power or freedom. Imagine a woman in an environment where her infidelity can be interpreted as a victory over sexism or societal standards that confine her. For her, this act may transcend the personal sphere, becoming almost a political statement. These motivations, although hard to understand, reveal just how much context influences individual decisions. But what happens when the social environment encourages something that, deep down, the woman doesn't want? This internal conflict between what is expected and what she desires can be fertile ground for impulsive actions or highly calculated decisions. And this leads us to think, how can we identify these moments before they spiral out of control? Often, signs of emotional dissatisfaction appear subtly, almost imperceptibly, but with deep impacts. A rarer smile, a touch that no longer has the same warmth, or even a prolonged silence can be the first signs that something is wrong. These small gestures, although easily overlooked in everyday life, are rooted in unmet emotional needs. For example, a woman who once eagerly shared the details of her day might start to withdraw. This isn't by chance. It's a reflection of feeling misunderstood or unappreciated. This dissatisfaction can also manifest in behavioral changes. A woman who suddenly spends more time on her appearance or develops new interests may be trying to fill emotional gaps. Imagine someone who starts taking dance lessons or getting involved in social groups outside their routine. These activities, although healthy, may in some cases be an attempt to reconnect with something missing in her intimate life. It's not just about the new, but what this new thing represents. A new beginning, an escape, or even an attempt to be noticed. The partner often doesn't notice these signs. He might confuse a change in behavior with something trivial, not realizing that it could be the prelude to a deeper emotional crisis. To avoid this, it's essential to keep an open and attentive communication channel. Honest conversations can help reveal whether these changes are just passing phases or reflections of something larger. Ignoring these signs may result in a painful surprise when the emotional distance has already become a barrier too hard to overcome. Curiously, these transformations don't happen in a linear fashion. They emerge gradually, like pieces of a puzzle that only make sense when seen together. A woman might feel dissatisfied for months before even considering cheating as a possibility. It's in this time frame that there are the greatest opportunities for reconnection and dialogue. However, if nothing is done, the ground may become fertile for someone else to step in, offering the attention or validation that's missing in the primary relationship. But what happens when these signs aren't noticed in time? This is when things can quickly shift, evolving into decisions that completely alter the dynamic of a relationship. Is there a way to prevent or reverse this process? Cheating, contrary to what many believe, isn't an isolated event, but rather a process that leaves deep marks on the female mind and the dynamics of any relationship. For some women, the act of cheating is followed by an avalanche of guilt and regret, while others experience a confusing sense of relief and renewal. This duality reflects the psychological impact of a behavior that challenges both internal values and social expectations. It's like carrying a secret that weighs on you, but at the same time, it feels like a liberation from a previous burden. In practice, the effects can vary. A woman who felt trapped in a draining relationship might find herself overwhelmed by a mix of emotions. She enjoys the momentary pleasure of the affair, but also has to deal with a constant fear of being discovered. This affects her mental health, causing anxiety, insomnia, or even sudden mood swings. Imagine someone who is constantly analyzing every word, every gesture, fearing that her partner might suspect something. This constant state of alertness can be emotionally exhausting. Furthermore, cheating often changes the way a woman sees herself. Some begin to question who they are and what they really want from life. For others, the act might serve as a catalyst for deeper changes, such as ending a toxic relationship or starting a process of self-discovery. A common example is women who, after an affair, decide to seek therapy to understand the reasons behind their choices. This self-awareness can be transformative, but also painful, especially when they realize the impact of their actions on others. And the partner, even if he never finds out, the relationship dynamic changes. Small details, like the frequency of conversations or the level of emotional involvement, are altered. This happens because, in order to maintain the secret, the woman has to create emotional barriers, which only distance the couple even further. Interestingly, in many cases, it's this emotional distance that serves as the biggest sign of infidelity, even if nothing is ever said. It's a silent game where both lose something valuable: trust. The psychological impact, therefore, doesn't stop when the affair happens. It unfolds in layers, influencing future choices and the way a woman approaches her relationships. The question is, can this dynamic be repaired, or are the marks permanent? For those who are attentive, infidelity is often a puzzle that can be solved even before it fully forms. Understanding the signs, causes, and impacts is the first step to preventing it, but it's also essential to look ahead. After all, how can partners build a stronger relationship and identify weak points before they become major problems? The answer lies in learning the emotional language of the other, something that often goes unnoticed in the rush of everyday life. Building emotional intimacy isn't an easy task, but it can be incredibly effective. Imagine a couple who sets aside at least one night a week for deep conversations, free from the distractions of daily life. This simple practice can be transformative. When both partners feel heard and valued, the need to seek validation outside the relationship diminishes dramatically. It's like watering a plant. Constant care is what keeps the connection alive and healthy. Another powerful strategy is learning to identify moments of disconnection before they turn into chasms. For example, think about how small arguments can be clues to something larger. Instead of ignoring or minimizing these signs, it's important to address them with curiosity, not judgment. What's going on is a simple question, but one that can open doors for conversations that avoid future crises. It's also worth remembering that, in many cases, infidelity is a symptom, not the cause. This means that focusing only on the act itself is like treating a fever without investigating the infection. The real cure lies in addressing the underlying problems, whether they are emotional, physical, or related to unrealistic expectations. Couples therapy, for example, can be a valuable tool to understand these contexts and find practical solutions. But what if all efforts fail? At this point, a bigger reflection arises. How far are we willing to rebuild or leave behind? This decision, although difficult, can provide answers about what it really means to be connected to someone. And sometimes, it's at this point that new paths are revealed. And have you thought about having the woman you want just through text messages? There's a secret that all women keep to themselves. A secret that triggers a mental switch in their minds when you send certain specific messages. I teach all of this in an ebook, and I'll leave it as a gift in the first pinned comment in this video. It's not free because I put in a lot of work to create it, but it's almost free, as it's ridiculously cheap, cheaper than a snack. Go ahead and grab your gift. Now that you've uncovered the deepest secrets behind the female mind and the reasons that can lead to infidelity, it's time to reflect. What can you do to strengthen your relationships and avoid these dynamics from becoming part of your life? The answer doesn't lie in controlling the other, but in building such a solid connection that no external influence can shake it. Are you willing to look within and adjust what might be missing? Imagine what a relationship would be like where both partners feel valued, heard, and fully connected. It's possible, but it takes courage to face difficult conversations, acknowledge your own mistakes, and seek mutual growth. How much are you willing to invest in the person beside you and in yourself? Remember, knowledge is just the first step. True transformation happens when you put everything you've learned into practice. So, what will change starting today? If you want to continue uncovering secrets and learning more about the mysteries of the mind and relationships, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, there will always be a space to explore topics that few dare to address. And have you thought about making her miss you every day? That's really simple. I've taught how this is possible with a few easy steps in the video that's on your screen. Click it, and I'll see you there.